right, this meeting's now going to come into order. We'll now read the mission statement of student government. The mission of
Baylor University student government is to represent the student body with respect to our Christian commitment and the ideals of Baylor University through shared governance as we seek to enrich the quality of student life.
I'd like to have our chaplain, Matt Cole, come down to give an invocation. I'd like to invite Matt Cole down.
Hi, everyone. Great. So, freshmen, if I haven't met you, my name is Matt Cole. So, the verse that I wanted to share with y'all today is a verse that's been on my heart ever since this summer. So it's Galatians 6, 9 through 10, and it says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people." And that's just one of those verses that's a little bit stuck with me as a continual reminder, because every day, like, we have reason to be tired, we have reason to be distracted, we have reason to be focusing on other things that are not necessarily glorifying to God. They can be our human pursuits, desires which are not necessarily bad, but they are maybe separate. And this has just been a verse that's been kind of guiding my thoughts as I can take everything in my life and I can say, okay, am I analyzing this through, am I continually doing good? And when there's the times where I get tired, or I would have the desire to be selfish, or want to put my desires above the Lord's desires for my life, then this verse reminds me we need to be continually reminded to doing good, because in due time we will reap that harvest of us doing good. And so in your roles as senators, as classmates, as students, as friends, as siblings, as whatever your roles may be, I'll just encourage you guys to not tire of doing good. So, let me pray. Dear Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for all the blessings that you give us. Lord, blessings of class, of our friends, of student government. And I just pray that this meeting is filled with wisdom and with discernment, and in everyone's actions, Lord, whether it's just us talking in Senate, whether it's later tonight, whether it's just us listening to each other. I pray that we never tire of doing good. And then that is an attitude that extends not just tonight, but for the rest of the semester and the rest of the year and for the rest of our lives. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Matt, we'll now move into a period of roll call. When your name is called, please respond here. Behringer? Here. Birchall?
Here.
Carrasco? Here. Casillas?
Here.
Delaro?
Here.
Dill?
Here.
Gordon?
Here.
Jayhawk?
Here.
Knight?
Here.
Maldonado?
Yes.
Maldonado? Sorry, I'm so sorry. Nelson? Here. Smith?
Here.
Stout?
Here.
Crawford? Here. Garner? Here. Glaze? Kelleher? Here. Corpy?
Here.
Miller? Here. Morgan?
Here.
Sharon?
Here.
Soundy?
Here.
Watson? Here. Allen? Here. Burns?
Here.
Cole?
Here.
Ferguson?
Here.
Groves? Here. Hines? Lawrence?
Here.
McNeese?
Here.
Payne? Salguero?
Here.
Sharam?
Here.
Bowe? Rogers?
Here.
Brown? Burns? Here. Duncan? Here. Duncan?
Here.
Galvin?
Here.
Gosser?
Here.
McClanahan? Here. Richardson?
Here.
Short?
Here.
Span? Koch? Here. Wright?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
All right, we'll now move into open forum with our special guest, Dr. Livingstone and Chair Clemens. So if y'all like to come in.
thank you for having us with you this evening. I'm just going to do a little bit of a brief update and then an introduction of Chair Clements, and then let her say a few words to you just about the board and what the role of the board is. And then we really want to spend most of our time seeing what you would like to know about what's going on at the university, what the board's doing, those sorts of things. So just a couple of updates for you as we come into the fall semester. Of course, we're deep into implementation of Illuminate, our strategic plan, and Give Light, our $1.1 billion campaign in support of that. And what I would say is we're making really great progress on, I think, both of those. The strategic plan, we hired a new provost. Some of you may have met Dr. Brinkhouse, but she started in May. So she really was here all summer, which was fabulous. So she's up and running and very active and very busy right now, and really working closely with our deans and faculty on kind of building out the details of that plan, the research support, and those sorts of things. So that is going well. Certainly a big part of that is the Give Light campaign that we're raising money to support that plan. If you recall, last spring we announced a $100 million gift, a portion to the new basketball pavilion, but a portion for an academic challenge that will allow us to bring in endowed professors. And it's a matching gift, so if somebody gives us $1.5 million for a chair, that gift will match it, so we'll end up with a $3 million chair. But prior to this, we had, I think, 3 on campus that were that large, at least $3 million. We've already had 2 signed agreements for endowed chairs that will be $3 million chairs. We have 2 more that I can't provide details of, but we have those commitments. And we'll sign those agreements hopefully within the next 1 to 2 months. And those will be very significant. Our goal is to have 8 of those before the end of the year, and that will be really significant to us to bring in the right kinds of faculty and to make significant progress on that. So all of that work is going well. We've raised well over, I think it's probably getting close to $740 million of the $1.1 billion campaign. And we still have about 2 years left on that campaign. So we've got a lot of work to do, but it's significant and getting great support from the community in coming alongside us and being a part of that. So that's really important. The other thing I would say, just some things going on campus this fall. As you know, we're having conversations around how we engage with and support and care for all of our students on our campus, but particularly our LGBTQ community on campus. And so we are in the process of doing some kind of conversations in small groups around that issue, kind of understand better the experience students are having on our campus and how we can address some of the issues that we need to. So there's several staff in the student life office that are going to be doing small group discussions with students. Some of you may be invited to be a part of that. And then on the faculty side, we have 2 of our faculty, one from social work, one from the law school. They're going to be doing the same thing with faculty to be a part of that conversation. And as those conversations are just beginning, and so we'll probably be doing those over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll be, compiling that information, really thinking about it and looking at what we learned from that can be really important to us. I know you all have had some discussions about that here in student government as well, and I suspect we'll continue to. So it's an important thing we're working on this semester. And kind of parallel to that, certainly not directly related, we are hosting a conversation series this fall and into the spring on civil discourse. And the goal of that series is to really help us think about how, particularly in a Christian community, we can come together on really important issues that matter to our community, matter to the world outside the walls of Baylor, where we might actually have really strong opinions, but we might disagree strongly, even within the context of being a Christian community. So how do we have those conversations? How do we come together, listen to each other, learn from each other, and maybe never agree on those issues, but also think about how we learn to live and work and be in community together in that context. So this fall, we had one event with faculty, which was fabulous. Next week, we have an event with students. Some of you may be aware of that or may have been invited to be a part of that. We're going to have roundtables with students, with faculty to kind of begin to talk about that. We have a couple of more events later in the semester where we have speakers from outside coming. The last of those will be in November with Dr. Robbie George and Dr. Cornell West, who are Ivy League faculty who are probably about as far from each other on the spectrum of almost any issue you can imagine. One's very conservative, one's very liberal, but they teach together. They're very good friends. They talk a lot about how to have healthy conversations, even when you disagree, and probably will never agree. And so we're bringing them to campus at the end of the semester, which is going to be fabulous. Then in the spring, we will continue this series, but we'll shift to really focusing on specific issues that are very controversial in our community or in the world more broadly, and on which really caring, thoughtful people can have significant disagreements, and we'll be bringing people to campus that will help us sort of understand how to have conversations around those specific issues in healthy ways. So hope that you'll participate in as much of that as you can and pay attention to that. You guys get to practice it probably every week at student government on how you do that and do that well, so we appreciate that a lot. So those are some of the things that are going on. When we get to Q&A, I'm happy to answer questions about any of that or talk about anything else that you would like to. But I want you to meet the chair of our board, Jerry Clements. Chair Clements is in her 9th year as a board member, and that's the limit of how long you could serve. So she is serving as chair in her last year. She's really a fabulous partner in the work that we're doing. She is an attorney by training, went to the Baylor Law School. She's a orange frog as an undergrad. Forgive her for that. And she led Law Board as the managing partner and chairman at a large international law firm for many years, and it's just been a fabulous member of our board, a wonderful supporter of Baylor through the years. And so we wanted you to get to know her and to hear from her. You may or may not have any idea what a Board of Regents does, and so we thought that would be a good thing for you to learn more about, and then certainly answer any questions that you have for either of us. So I'm going to turn it over to Chair Clements.
Thank you, Dr. Livingstone. So nice to be here and get to visit with you for a little while today. I really appreciate the opportunity. Just to give you a little bit of background and a brief overview of what the Board of Regents does, because I think sometimes it's like we're behind the curtain and nobody really knows. We are in large part a board that does oversight and is an advisory board. The administration under Dr. Livingstone runs the day-to-day operations of the university. The Board of Regents has one specific job, and it's probably the most important job around here, and that is to hire the president and make sure we hire the right president. So I think we've done a really good job on that, and I give ourselves a little pat on the back on that one. Beyond that, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about our board. We're 40 people, including 2 student regents. One of those student regents is a voting regent. The second student regent, the more junior regent, comes on the board for a year and then becomes a voting regent when the more senior regent rolls off. That's been a real great addition to our board when we did governance restructuring a few years ago. And I think it's a fairly unique situation here at Baylor. Frankly, when our task force who designed our governance restructuring for our board to bring it into the 21st century and have best practices came forth with their recommendations, those 2 student regents were non-voting, and you probably won't be surprised to know that your then colleagues came to us, made a very compelling argument that I was very proud of to hear, and convinced the board unanimously to make the change so that we would have the staggered 1 voting, 1 non-voting student regent, and that's been a really great deal for us. Our board comes from a variety of backgrounds, but very spectacular credentials, whether it's a CEO of Fortune 100 companies or lawyers or ministers in the Baptist faith or in the healthcare industry. We've got a great deal of experience that the board brings to the table. Just briefly, a little bit about my goals this year. My year as chair goes very quickly. I'm already almost halfway through it, I think. But so I have some things in mind that I really wanted to do this year. One of them was to bring stability to our leadership. And you probably saw this week that we extended Dr. Livingstone's contract as the action of the Board of Regents to do that. And we're very thrilled about that because stability in leadership is so important. And we didn't want Dr. Livingstone to go off somewhere else and run some other university. So we're very happy about that. We extended a couple of other contracts you may have heard about as well. But to me, the important one was really Dr. Livingstone's role as president. I also wanted to make sure that the Board of Regents has better communications with all of the constituency groups around the campus. So this week, Dr. Livingstone and her team have been kind enough to get me in front of the Faculty Senate, the deans, the graduate student associations, and now through the student government. So I'm very happy about that because I want people to understand the board and what we do. I think there's been a little bit of sort of mystery about it, and particularly during some of the challenging times. So we're really here to talk about that and give you some insight. And then last but not least, sort of a broader deal is to ensure that we help Dr. Livingstone implement the vision that she has put together for her strategic plan and Illuminate, and also assist with Give Light, of course. So we're very excited about the strategic plan and the approach to make Baylor a R1 Tier 1 research institution, a very unique place in higher education. So we're all working very hard to figure out big ideas and big ways we can help the university move in that direction and reach those goals. So I will stop there, and we really want to hear your questions, and anxious to see what's on your mind.
One thing I will say before I answer the other questions is, at each of our board meetings, the leadership of undergraduate of the Student Government Association comes to our board meeting and shares kind of an update with the board, and the Graduate Student Association does the same thing. So the board is really kept very much up to date on the things that you all are working on, the things that are important to our students, and we actually have a hard time getting the board to quit asking them questions so we can actually move on to other business in our committee meetings sometime, because they do love spending time with our students and hearing what you guys are thinking and struggling with and working on.
It's the
as a
best
student
part of
government.
what
Yeah.
we do, really. So keep coming to see us.
Yeah. So questions about anything, board, stuff going on at the university, whatever you'd like to ask us about. We were just grilled in Dr. Jackson's class, so we're ready to go. We're warmed up.
Yeah.
What's the importance of an endowed professorship?
So endowment is, and I don't even know how much you guys know about endowment, but you have endowment that you hold the corpus and you invest, but you don't actually spend the corpus of the money, and then you spend the earnings off of that. Okay? And so there's multiple things. So the reason you want endowment is because it gives you stable funding over the long run that you can rely on, that isn't reliant on tuition dollars or federal funding or something. And so it gives you stability in your financial model. There's universities like Harvard and Stanford, Rice even has huge endowments. So a large portion of their budget has nothing to do with tuition. And so it gives them more flexibility, it gives them more financial strength. So for a faculty member, an endowed professorship, what that does is it means you don't have to use your operating budget or the money that's coming from tuition to actually support that faculty member. Depending on how large the endowment is, it might actually pay for the faculty member's salary. It might pay for graduate assistants that work with them. It might pay for, to help support the research that they're doing. So it actually gives us more flexibility in our budget. And the more you grow your endowment, the more you can actually help manage tuition costs and tuition increases and everything over a long period of time. It's also kind of prestigious for a faculty member to have a chaired faculty position, so it could also help attract somebody and give them some extra resources to work.
I know we just talked about this, but I want everyone to kind of hear y'all say, what are like some strong leadership traits that you see are important in
You can take that one
Okay.
first.
I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think to me, very important that a leader that has values that can then be spread through the rest of the organization, whether it's a university or, in my case, a law firm. That's, integrity, doing the right thing, having the right culture in place, and being the example of that on a daily basis, because truly, so many people look to the leader of an organization, and to me, it's really critical that the leader set the tone for the organization and have the values in place that make for a strong organization, a healthy organization, and an ethical organization at every level. Communication, the ability to let people know what your thinking is, what your plan is, what your goals are, and your strategy and vision are for your organization, because people really want to understand that. If they don't know, we talked a little bit about this in the leadership class, people are fearful of what they don't understand, And if you're just heading up an organization and you are moving forward with your plan, but people don't know what it is, and they're constantly concerned that they're somehow going to be not a part of the organization going forward, or that their role will be changed. So communication is really critical. And then my last one is consensus building. As a leader, you have to be able to set your goals for your organization and then get your whole team on board with that. You want people moving forward together. And if people are not on board with your vision or your plan, it's going to be very difficult to drag them along with you. You want them pushing forward with you. You don't want to be dragging them along. And that requires a lot of consensus building, a lot of communication, a lot of time and effort to make sure your organization understands your directions, your goals, and objectives.
And for all of that, but I would add, the other things I would sort of say, one, I think as a leader, it takes a lot of courage to be a good leader. You have to make difficult decisions. You always have to do this as student government. You're making choices about how to allocate resources. You're deciding what bills to approve or not, and how those impact the student body here and the organization. And so it takes courage to make difficult decisions, knowing that not everybody's going to be happy with the decisions you make, and you have to be willing to do that and willing to sort of stand up for what you decide, even when you know there's going to be some disagreement and pushback on it. So I think that's important. I think that has to be paired with humility. I think one of the most dangerous qualities of a leader is hubris or pride, because then it becomes more about you than it is about the organization, and then you make decisions that are not in the best interest of the organization. So to be a good leader, I think you have to have a sense of humility, so you're willing to acknowledge when you need to learn something, when you've made a mistake, and you recognize in that humility that you need other people to help you to be successful in an organization. And then that kind of leads to the third thing I would say is, I think one of the most important things you have to do as a leader is put the right team around you. You cannot do everything by yourself. You don't have the skill set to do it. You don't have the time to do it. And so putting the right people in place and supporting them to be a healthy, effective, successful team is probably the most important thing you have to do as a leader, or you're going to really struggle, especially as you move up into an organization and that organization becomes more complex.
It helps to have a sense of humor, too.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Let's do here, and then we'll come back over to you.
What qualifications must the university meet in order to be a Tier 1 research institution, and where are we at in that process currently?
So we kind of use the term R1, Tier 1 kind of interchangeably. So let me talk about Tier 1. We sometimes think about like the U.S. News Top 50. R1 is really more the Carnegie classification. So the Carnegie Foundation does a classification that they update periodically. I'm not sure it's real consistent. It used to be every 5 years. Now they tend to do it maybe a little more frequently. And the categories there for Research 1, we're a Research 2 organization right now, so we just want to move up into the next category. Some of the primary metrics that they look at are the amount of research funding, external research funding that comes in that your faculty or students are using for research projects. That could be from foundations, it could be from, you know, the NIH or, you know, government funding, the Department of Defense, whatever, you know. They look at doctoral production in certain fields. It's research-oriented doctorates, not so much professional doctorates, but research-oriented doctorates, how many they look at kind of the staffing support for research. So one of the things you probably saw in my presidential perspective last week was a new postdoc program, which may or may not mean anything to you. But basically that means that we're starting this program and we're going to bring in 65 postdocs over the next 3 years. They typically will each be here for 3 years. And they're people who have PhDs in one of these areas that sort of counts for Carnegie. They come and all they do is research. They don't teach class or anything. They research. They work with a specific faculty member to help that faculty member to be more productive. It also gives more opportunities for undergraduate and master's students to do research because that faculty member now has more help with their research. Those folks count towards moving us up. I can't tell you the exact numbers of where we are here and where we need to be. If you guys ever had Dr. Brickhouse come, she could actually show those specific numbers. But we have a plan. We've got kind of a 10-year plan. We can do it sooner than that if some certain things fall into place exactly right. But we've got to build the right infrastructure so faculty have the support they need and the support they need for their students that are working with them to do the research, to write the grant proposals, and that sort of thing.
So I know that Illuminate has different like strategic pillars, and the one that I hear the least often is the Baylor in Latin America. So I was just wondering like what details that might entail and why you've chosen to focus on like that specific part of the world.
So there's 5 of those academic focus areas. So material science, data science, materials science, data sciences, I have to get the S's in the right place, health, human flourishing, leadership and ethics, and then Latin America, which is the one you're talking about. And it's a little different than the others. I mean, I think that's part of the reason. All of those are in there because they are interdisciplinary. They're areas where we have existing strength, and they're areas where we think there's funding opportunity, because bringing in outside funding is important. And so Latin America, as we were kind of building out that plan, what we discovered is we have a lot of faculty on our campus that do research and work in Latin America. Whether it's people in environmental sciences that are doing water research in Latin America, whether it's our School of Social Work that's trying to figure out how to stop human trafficking across the border and into the country or back out of the country, whether it's our seminary that's doing church planting in Latin America, whether it's our business school that is working on economic development issues. The other piece of that is Latin America and Texas are sort of blending in many ways. I mean, demographically, we're going to look a lot more like Latin America and Texas in the next 30 years than will look like other parts of the United States because of the growth of the Hispanic population. And so part of that was not so much that, and we don't have a coherent strategy around that. We have a lot of people doing a lot of disparate things. We have 30 or 40 faculty, but we don't have a strategy around it. And we probably have more strategy and more focus in some of the other areas. So we actually hired a faculty member last year. He came in January, who has a joint appointment between, I think it's sociology and social work, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I apologize. And part of the reason we brought him here is because he's kind of an expert in that area, and we're gonna rely on him and some of our other faculty to kind of help us build that strategy on how do we go from having a lot of people doing a lot of disparate stuff to actually getting some impact instead of doing a lot of little things. How do we bring people together and work on some initiatives that will actually help us have greater impact in that area? So that's a little bit of that story, but that's why you haven't heard as much about it. It's a little bit more nascent than some of the others, and we have to bring the right people together to provide leadership. Who else?
As we move into tier 1 research, how does that look for faculty? Are more professors who come on, are they going to be more from academia versus the field that they teach? I know being here in the business school, some of my professors were in the industry for 20, 30 years. Some of them only a few years. They went back, got their PhD, and teaching styles are very different. So how does that look, going forward, and how do you kind of balance that?
Well, one of the things that we've done, I say we've done, the provost and the deans have done, is they've actually developed a 5-year hiring plan in support of the strategic plan Illuminate. And I will tell you, I've been at 3 different universities coming back here. This is the first time I've seen a university actually take on that challenging task of trying to build out a 5-year faculty hiring plan. And that plan is designed to support Illuminate, so to say, in these, particularly these focus areas, what kind of faculty we need over what time, and it also includes, what's our student population going to look like? How are we going to see students distributed across majors, and how do we make sure that we're bringing in the right faculty to teach the right classes, as well as to do the research that we need to do. Another important piece of that, we anticipate about 30% of our faculty retiring in the next 5 to 8 years. So in addition to sort of growing some of our faculty research and bringing in new faculty to help us on some of the initiatives, there's just going to be a huge demand for new faculty on this campus just by attrition purposes. And so that's another reason that 5-year hiring plan is so important. So you will continue to see a mix of faculty, and particularly in a school like the business school that is such an applied place, you will continue to see, practice-oriented faculty that come out of business and that have that experience. You'll see people that have that and they have the academic background. And so what that blend looks like will vary some by unit on campus, depending on kind of the nature of it. If you're in chemistry, you're probably going to have less of the sort of people out of industry. You may have a few of those, but you're going to probably have more folks that come with more of a pure academic background than you would say in business or social work or something And that's why we're working on this plan, so that the deans and the department chairs work with our provost office to build out a plan that makes sense for that unit, what we think enrollment's gonna do, as well as what we can do for research.
Yes. This is much more general, but I was just wondering what advice you would give to undergraduate students who hope to someday be on the trajectory to becoming managing partner of law court or president of a major university. Are there things that we can be doing right now to help ourselves out in the future?
I think doing things like student government is certainly very helpful. I really am thrilled to see Baylor actually teaching leadership because when I was in school and even in law school, that was not something that people taught. It was sort of like you're either born with leadership capabilities or you're not. But there's so much you can learn in situations like this in the leadership course. So I guess my advice is just work really hard, whatever it is you're going to do, and be prepared for whatever comes your way. I mean, I never in a million years thought that I would ever be the chair of an international law firm. So when I grew up in Fort Worth and went to TCU, I could tell everybody I got to Waco as quickly as I could when I started the law school. Went to law school. Even then, I never imagined doing anything but just trying lawsuits. But you see opportunities, you see things in your firm you want to change, you want to make a difference. I was passionate about the law firm industry, and I just always kept an open mind about the opportunities that came along. And when I saw an opportunity, I let people know that I was interested in it. And so again, I guess what I always say, sometimes I'll speak at the law school graduations, you just never know where this road is going to take you, but get your skill set together. Do things like you're doing here. Find ways you can make a difference now in whatever your environment that you're in your next job, your career. Find ways you can make a difference, and the leadership opportunities will come to you, I promise. You will be recognized and you'll stand out. And it's beyond that, it's kind of a general answer, but that's kind of the best I have. Maybe Dr. Livingstone has some other ideas.
You know, a couple things I would add to that is, you know, stretch yourself as you kind of go through, whether it's college is actually a really safe place to stretch yourself. It may not feel like that sometimes, but it's a pretty low risk place to try new things and do different stuff. Your job's not dependent on it, you know, or your livelihood's not really dependent on it. So, you know, put yourself out there and try things that you might not have thought about, because you might actually find something you love that you didn't actually know that you would love that will turn out to be a great trajectory for you. So I really do encourage you to be willing to try things you think you might not be that good at, but you look a little bit interesting, and I think that can be very, very helpful. And do that when you get out of college too, and look for opportunities in companies, volunteer for things, so people know that you are interested in advancing and broadening your skill set and that sort of thing. But then I think it's also sort of beginning to recognize what you really love and what you're really good at. Because you're not going to be good at everything, and you're not going to love everything. And when you find that, like I loved teaching and I really liked doing research, but when I got to start doing administrative stuff, like I could tell that was kind of my sweet spot, and that was probably where I could have the most impact and what I really liked to do and where I had some skill set. I could certainly continue to be a teacher and a researcher and been really, really happy doing that, but you know, I can sort of tell that's what I need to do. The other thing I would say is listen to people that know you well and care a lot about you, that speak into you about the things you should consider and think about doing. And I'll give two very specific examples of that. When I was here at Baylor the first time, and some of you have heard me share this, when I was at Baylor the first time, I was Associate Dean of Graduate Programs, and Dr. Blaine McCormick, who's in the Buchanan class, came into my office one day, and he goes, "Hey, Linda, I just wanted you to know that I nominated you to be the Dean of the Business School at Pepperdine." And I'm like, well, gosh, that's nice, but I don't want to go to Pepperdine, and I'm very happy here, and I'm perfectly happy doing what I'm doing. I kind of figured I'd be at Baylor my whole life. I didn't think I would ever leave Texas probably again. and really California, you know, do I really want to go to California? How many, we've got Californians in the room, how many Californians? A few of them, yeah, quite a few of you. We love Californians, you guys are our largest group of students outside of Texas. But, you know, I wouldn't even have thought about that job, I wasn't looking for a job. If somebody hadn't come to me and said, I really think you ought to consider this and look at it. And then the other piece of that story that's interesting, when I was doing my doctorate, this is even before that, before I came to Baylor, my dissertation advisor, she asked me what schools I was looking at, maybe to apply to when I finished, which is a bit random because you only can apply where people actually have positions open. It's not like they all have positions in your field all the time. And she actually told me that I should consider Baylor, which I knew nothing about Baylor. I went to Oklahoma State, we weren't in the same conference at the time, and I'd never been on the campus, didn't know anybody that had gone to Baylor, so I wouldn't even really have been on my radar screen. But she knew I was a Christian and a person of faith, and that mattered to me, and she'd gone to UT, she'd been at UT Arlington, and so she knew Baylor. And so she told me I should think about Baylor if they had an opening. And honestly, I don't know if I would have even looked at Baylor if she hadn't said that. And that was kind of where my first academic position was. And if I hadn't had that, you know, would I still be back here now? You know, who knows? Maybe not, probably not. So people spoke into my life who saw things in me and saw where I might be a good fit. And it has made a real difference in my career trajectory. So listen to people that know you well and care for you.
Thank you all so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's been a motion to exit executive session. Is there a second? Are there any objections? Seeing none. All right, if y'all are ready to raise hands, repeat after me. I solemnly swear. That I will faithfully execute. The office of Student Senate Senator. And will. To the best of my ability. Uphold the Constitution. Of the Baylor University Student Body. So help me God. All right, we will now move into SA 67-01 Alpha Chi Omega Block Party. If the bill's author would come down and read the bill.
Title is Alpha Chi Omega Block Party. And whereas the name of the Baylor organization listed the event is Alpha Chi Omega, whereas the event shall be called Alpha Chi Omega Block Party, whereas the projected attendance of the event is estimated at 600 people. This projection includes members. The date and time of the event will be October 18th from 7 to 9 p.m. And it will be held at Fountain Mall. The Baylor organization is affiliated with the philanthropy of the Baker Family Abuse Center. Alpha Chi Omega is a women's fraternity that aims to combat domestic violence, promote healthy relationships, and empower women. And whereas the event will feature an array of activities that will include a concert featuring Christian French, inflatables, lawn games, and food trucks. Whereas food for sale will include nightlight donuts, Steel City Pops, bittersweet cookies, and pizza. And whereas student government has joined with the organization to fund this particular event for 3 years. And the total allocated amount is $6,000.
Do the authors have an opening statement?
I'm ready to suspend the rules and allow a member of the organization to speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? All right, please come down in.
just talk about the event and what you do for Alpha Chi.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Leanne Lasansky and I'm the VP of Finance for Alpha Chi Omega. So basically just a general overview of our block party event is that it's a platform for our sorority to come out and really have some good genuine conversations in a very lighthearted, airy atmosphere about the impacts of domestic violence. It is not only a women's issue, it is a human issue. We're hoping to do this by inviting a very well-known concert performer, Christian French, to our campus and allowing him to basically like set the mood for all these really good conversations and just have like a really good time with this student audience.
Does anyone have any technical, non-debatable questions for the organization about the event?
So the projection of attendance, since 600 including members, can you give us an estimate of how many members and then what the attendance will look like without them?
Okay, so I just asked her if I could amend.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you can answer it.
So our current active members, like here at Baylor, not including nursing students or anything, is 226. But I actually just asked her if I could like amend that because we do project that the attendance will be a lot larger than 600. Last year, our attendance was between 600 and 800 students at one point at the peak of our performance, but overall it was about 900, I think, is like what we're coming in and out. And then, yes, I expect at least like 800 people.
About how much money do you expect this event to raise?
So we are expecting to raise at least $6,000 from this event. Last year we did raise $4,000 solely on t-shirt sales, as well as ticket sales and like things like at the event. And then we raised about $1,500 off of food trucks, profit shares for that.
Cinderly?
How much did you guys raise last year and what did it go toward?
So last year we raised roughly $500 from the event itself, and 100% of our proceeds from the event went directly to the Waco Family Abuse Center. Specifically with that, we do know that they were able to buy brand new laundry facilities with that, but a lot of the money that we do donate towards the Waco Family Abuse Center is basic operating costs for them.
How much are you selling the t-shirts for?
The t-shirts will be $12 a piece.
Are you having any profit shares or anything throughout the week to help with fundraising?
We have 3 profit shares. I believe 2 of them are during the week of the event, and 1 is the week after.
How much are membership dues and what do they go toward?
So our members pay $680 a semester, and $300 of that dues goes directly towards facility operations. The way that Alpha Chi Omega works is that we pay rent to Alpha Chi Omega, and Alpha Chi Omega pays like our rent for the Panhellenic building to Baylor. And then we do, each member is responsible for $110 a semester directly to headquarters as a basically like a membership fee. So only $270 of our girls' actual dues go towards officer budgets and chapter operations.
Thank you.
So I know that you mentioned that you expect to raise more money this year. Is that just from higher attendance expectancy, or why do you expect to raise more money this year than last year?
Definitely higher attendance for sure, and then additionally, we didn't do tabling very well with t-shirts last year. We only did it for like a few days versus an entire week this time, and so we're expecting to generate more revenue from the t-shirts that way, in addition to the way we've set up like selling food at the event as well.
Are there any other technical, non-debatable questions?
You might have said this and I did not hear it. How much did you raise from t-shirt sales last year?
Between t-shirt sales and also we basically like sold tickets at the event last year for people to do like activities or like get a couple of food items there that way, and between those two together it was roughly 4,000. I don't have a number of
Are there any other events happening that night, and how do you anticipate? If so, how do you anticipate working around that or with that?
So, so our block party is on Fountain Mall on October 18th, next Friday. Additionally, Fiji Fright Night is also that night on Fountain Mall. So our event is from 6 to 9, and Fiji Fright Night starts at 9, I believe. And so we're basically we're not working with Fiji in particular in terms of like a conjoined event or anything like that, but we are going to encourage like the attendees at our event to go attend Fiji Friday night, and additionally the Fiji members are encouraging their people to come to our event right before as well. So we expect there to just be a lot of traffic on Fountain Mall that night for the entire school.
Is there any other technical non-debatable questions for the organization? All right, take your seats. Thank you. Is there a finance committee report?
Yes. So this bill came to Finance Committee starting at 7,500, and we amended it down to 6,000. That passed unanimously, four in favor, none against. So our pros for the event, we were confident that they were going to raise a lot of philanthropic impact. It's a great event. They put a lot of work into it, picked a good music artist. They planned it well. They've especially planned with a lot of looking back at what like maybe didn't go as well in the past and then making that better. And also they're directly helping a local philanthropy, which I think is unique on campus. Our cons we're worried about attendance because of the conflicts with Fiji, and that it's still a growing event, so there's not a lot of, I think this is their third year doing it, so not a lot of precedent for it, but it passed 4 in favor and none against.
Are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now move into a period of debate over the bill. Is there a pro? Senator Ketch.
Hi, so like Matt just said, something that is really unique for Alpha Chi Omega and this event is that it directly benefiting the Waco community, the Waco Community Center. A lot of times you'll see a lot of like national fundraising, but this is really, really special in that we get to really affect people in Waco, in our community. And I really hope you all vote for this bill and help those people that are in our community and need our help.
Is there a con? There's been a motion to suspend the rules and end on an unbalanced debate. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into closing statements from the author.
Vote for this bill.
So the vote for an essay is majority acclamation. An I vote is in favor of the bill, a nay vote is against the bill. So now we'll move into a period of voting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, this allocation passes. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Senator Allen.
I move to amend the agenda to put SR 67-02.
SR 67-02 in a second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, so moved. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Senator Watson.
I move to amend the agenda to have SA 67-16 and do second reading.
SA 67-16 into second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Seeing none. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Senator Burns.
I motion to amend the agenda and move SS 67-01 into second reading.
Is there a second? Are there any objections? Seeing none. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we'll move into the confirmation of the court justices. If Supreme Court Justice and the nominees could come down.
Hi, I'm Aiden, Chief Justice. We saw 10 people between 4 justices and clerks, and what it really came down to was who had the best qualifications and who had the philosophy of this position. So this is great. We have Bert and Ben for justices and Cameron for electoral marshal.
Does anyone have any technical non-debatable questions for the candidates?
For all the the candidates, can you talk about how you view your position, what it's looking like for the coming year?
Like Tour Marshall, I'll make sure that any candidate has any question or any concerns regarding the result of election, I provide an investigation that's very non-biased and very thorough, and make sure they get the justice that they seek out. And then as a justice for me, I feel like my role on the court would be interpreting the law that we're given. It's not our job to make law, that's your guys' job to make law. So my job is just interpreting cases that come before us.
So also as a justice on the court, very much like Ben just spoke to, our job is to interpret the statutes that this body passes, and also deal with parking tickets.
As a clerk, I'm just gonna work to serve the court and serve the Baylor community and learn more about the role of the judicial branch of student government.
Anyone have any other questions?
Point of order, did all the candidates see OMP this week?
Are there any other technical non-debatable questions for our judicial branch? Seeing none, you know,
Student board.
I will act as an advocate on behalf of my Baylor University class.
I will act as an advocate on behalf of my Baylor University class. And student body.
And will to the best of my ability.
Will to the best of my ability.
Uphold the Constitution of the Baylor University student body, so help me God.
Uphold the Constitution of the Baylor student body, so help me God.
all right, are there any points or motions on the floor? Senator Allen? Are there any objections? Seeing none? Yes. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now move into second reading with SA 67-16 Hispanic Heritage Month banquet. Would the authors please come down to read the bill?
Whereas the name of the Baylor organization hosting the event is Hispanic Student Association, whereas the event shall be called Hispanic Heritage Month Banquet, whereas the projected attendance of the event is estimated at 140, and where this projection does include members, whereas the date and time of the event was Friday, October 4th from 6 to 8:30 p.m., whereas this event will be located, or was located at Cashin 506 Banquet Hall, and whereas Hispanic Student Association has been a student organization since 1987, and whereas this event will feature an array of activities that will include a banquet dinner to celebrate Hispanic history and culture, featuring live entertainment, student performances, a photo booth, and a keynote speaker, Sonia Nazario. And whereas this year is the 32nd annual Hispanic Heritage Month banquet, and this is HSA's biggest event in the fall. And whereas this banquet is a celebration of Hispanic history, culture, and art. And whereas this event brings the city of Waco, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Baylor students together. And whereas Sonia Nazario is an American journalist who is widely known for her work at the Los Angeles Times, and who has written about social issues for more than 2 decades and has won some of the most prestigious awards for her works, including 2 Pulitzer Prizes. And whereas student government has joined with the organization to fund this particular event for 5 years, and the total allocated amount was $3,000.
Do the authors have an opening statement?
Move to suspend the rules and have members of the organization speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, they may come down. Y'all would just like to say your names and talk about the event.
Hello, my name is Adolfo Preto Jr. I'm a senior from Houston, and I'm president of HSA.
My name is Abraham Valderas. I'm a junior here from Houston, Texas, and I'm the special events director for HSA. So as y'all have heard, this was our 32nd annual Hispanic Heritage Month banquet. We've had it every year since the inception of our organization. And it's just a chance to celebrate the contributions, the cultures, histories, and impacts made by Hispanics and Latinos in America. And so it's basically just a formal banquet where people show up in formal wear. They get a three-course meal, and you get the chance to mingle with all of the people who show up in the event. For example, this year we had students from Baylor, we had students from NCC, we had some Baylor administratives such as Dr. Jackson, we had Dr. Palacios, Dr. Martha Lou Scott, and we also had 10 City of Waco officials.
And so, as President Linda Livingstone said earlier today, that Texas is more and more becoming like Latin America. It is true, the Hispanic minority is the biggest population on Baylor's campus, hovering around about 15% of the population. In spring of 2017, Baylor was given the title of an emerging Hispanic serving institution. So we are here, and so as Baylor keeps growing, as the diversity keeps growing, it's crucial that we keep funding these events to highlight the cultural representation that Baylor has to offer here.
Are there any technical non-available questions for the organization?
What was kind of the divide between non-members and members of HSA at this banquet?
So as of right now, we have about 24 students as part of our organization, and about, how many of them attended the banquet?
15.
About 15. And then we had 3 tables reserved from MCC with 10 people each, and a good portion of those were students as well.
How many non-HSA Baylor students were there?
So we had about 45 individual tickets, and we said about 15 to 20 were our members, so another 20 to 25 were Baylor students not in our organization.
Are there any other, sorry.
And so that there were 140 people at the event?
Yes.
How much do tickets cost for something like this?
It's $10 for students, $20 general admission.
Are there any other questions for the organization?
So for the tables that weren't students, what else was that filled by?
So we had 7 tables. One table was bought by the city of Waco, one table was bought by the Baylor Administrative, one table was for MA, one table was for our organization, and then 3 tables were bought for MCC. The remaining 7 tables were free for all of our students.
Are there any other technical non-available questions? All right, I'm gonna take those. Is there a finance report?
Yes. So, yeah, we saw HSA last, I would say that, Tuesday night.